Stop! Before you say she's just sick, before you say she's just dying, before you say the show is building to some tragic goodbye scene where Ellis holds her hand and cries, I need you to look at those numbers Kristi pulled off Fatima one more time. Because a living, breathing human being cannot have those vitals. That is not a sick woman lying in that bed. That is a body that has already walked away from the biological rules of being alive and is now transitioning into something else entirely. And once you start pulling on that thread, once you really sit with what this show has been quietly building toward all season, a theory emerges that is so dark, so perfectly constructed, and so completely devastating that I genuinely wish I hadn't pieced it together. What if Fromville isn't killing Fatima? What if it's building her? What if with every cycle this place quietly manufactures its own horrors? And this time around, we are watching the entire assembly process happening in real time, right in front of our faces. I'm going to lay out exactly why Fatima is not becoming a standard night creature. I'm going to explain why she is becoming something far worse, a role this town has already filled before, in a cycle long dead, worn by a woman we've already met. And by the time I'm done, you are going to look at the Kimono woman completely differently. Let's go back to what we actually saw on screen, because the details matter here. Kristi examines Fatima, and the medical data is chilling in the most clinical way possible. Blood pressure through the floor, a heartbeat that by every known law of medicine should not be producing a conscious, standing, talking human being. Fatima should be on an autopsy table. Instead, she's standing in a room telling people she feels okay. That word, okay, said with that quiet, distant look in her eyes, like she's not entirely sure what okay even means anymore. That disconnect is completely intentional. The writers aren't framing this as a tragic illness arc. They're not doing a disease of the week storyline. They are showing us something stuck between states, a body parked in a purgatorial space, functioning in ways the human form was never supposed to function. That has a specific meaning in this story, and we'll get to it. Then the black marks appear crawling across her stomach, and the internet does exactly what you'd expect. Every theory thread, every Discord server, every Reddit post comes to the same conclusion. She's turning into a night monster. She's becoming one of them. And look, I get it. That's the obvious read. The marks, the vitals, the connection to Smiley, it all points there. It makes sense. But this is From, and From has never once handed anyone the obvious answer. This show is brilliant at burying the real truth underneath the easy answer. When every single character inside the town is panicking and landing on the same conclusion, that is almost always the show waving something shiny in your face while the actual trick happens somewhere else. The night monster theory is misdirection, and the real reveal is a figure we've already met, the Kimono woman. Think about what the Kimono woman actually is, because she gets lumped in with the night creatures, and that comparison doesn't hold up when you look closely. She doesn't have claws. She doesn't run through the woods. She doesn't drag anyone out of their house in the dark. She whispers. She manipulates. She gets inside heads. She found Elgin and quietly convinced him, a good, scared kid who just wanted out of this nightmare, to grab Fatima, to hold her down, to trap her, under the devastating and completely false promise that doing so would somehow free everyone from Fromville. And that dark road went exactly one place, the horrifying rebirth of Smiley. The Kimono woman isn't just a spooky ghost drifting around the margins of the story. She is a mechanism. She is a functioning, load-bearing piece of the machine that keeps this cycle turning. Smiley doesn't come back without her doing her job first. She is, in the most literal sense of the word, a system administrator for the horror. And that detail, that very specific role, is where Fatima's story stops to lock into something terrifying. Now hold that and lay it right next to what we know about Fatima. She's the one who was used to bring Smiley into the world. Her body carried that thing, birthed it, made its return possible. And now the same body is cracking open, failing, showing impossible biological signs, while she remains conscious and present, drifting further from anything resembling normal life with every passing episode. Do you see the shape of what's happening here? One woman made Smiley's rebirth possible. Now another woman, intimately tied to that exact same creature, is dissolving out of her humanity. That is not a coincidence. That is a design pattern. And once you see it, The broader cycle theory of this show stops being a fun intellectual exercise and starts feeling like genuine nightmare fuel. Because From has been screaming about repetition since day one, roles in this town don't disappear, they get recast. Tabitha echoes Miranda. Jade echoes Christopher. Ethan has been walking almost perfectly in Victor's childhood footsteps this whole season. Julie is woven into repeating chapters that feel older than anyone currently alive in that town. The place doesn't lose pieces of itself, it reassigns them. Old parts get stripped out, new people get slotted in, and the machine keeps running. So if every major character is occupying a seat that someone else sat in before them, why would Fatima be the exception? What if there was a woman in a cycle long before ours who was also used to birth a creature? What if her body also began shutting down in that same terrifying in-between space? And what if, over time, that woman stopped being a woman entirely and became the entity we now call the Kimono woman? If that's true, then Fatima isn't at the end of a story. She is being fitted for a costume. She is being prepped for a chair that the current Kimono woman is about to vacate. Same role, new face, just wearing Fatima's eyes. Sit with the weight of that for a second, because there is a real difference between dying and what this theory is suggesting. If Fatima dies, it's devastating. It's brutal and heartbreaking, and it destroys Ellis, and it's genuinely sad. But death in this context would almost be mercy. What this theory is saying is something much worse, that the town didn't kill her. It recruited her. It took a pure, hopeful, loving person and is in the process of converting her into a tool, into a mechanism, into the next generation of a manipulative entity that will spend whatever comes after this cycle, whispering into the ears of whatever new group of survivors gets swallowed up by this place. That is not death. That is a fate so much worse than death that I don't even know how to properly articulate how horrifying it is. And it is the most From thing this show could possibly do. Now here's the second major clue that I think people are completely sleeping on, and it connects directly to the moment that everyone celebrated. Back in episode 7, Fatima sees through Smiley's eyes. She reaches in, she interferes, she physically stops the creature from getting Kenny on top of that bus. And in the moment, it felt incredible. Finally these people have something, a weapon, a line into the monster's mind that nobody's ever had before. The town felt, just for a second, like it wasn't completely unwinnable. But after what we saw in episode 8, that gift looks completely different now. Because here's the thing about supernatural connections in stories like this. They are almost never a one-way street. If Fatima can see through Smiley, Smiley can see through her. If she can reach into it, it can reach into her. It might be doing exactly that right now, from the inside, accelerating this transformation while she stands there, thinking she's the one holding the leash. Fatima believes she found a power, but the darker and more honest read is that she found a bond, and bonds in Fromville don't work in your favor. If the original Kimono woman was connected to a creature in exactly the same way before her own transformation, then Fatima isn't discovering something new. She is just repeating an ancient script she never knew existed. The town already knows how this story goes. It's done it before. And the visual evidence has been there for people who knew to look. Fans have been pointing this out for a while now. The way Fatima carries herself, the stillness, the distant quality in her eyes, the way she's been drifting further and further from any picture of a normal future. Individually, you could write any of those things off as acting choices or costume decisions. But this is a show built entirely on echoes. In a series where repetition is the central mechanic, a visual rhyme is never an accident. It's a planted clue. The one nuance worth holding on to is this. Fatima is not going to become the same Kimono woman we've already met. She's going to become the Kimono woman of the next cycle. The one we know was born from a cycle that collapsed. Fatima is the upgraded version. Same terrible job, new face, new layer of tragedy underneath it. When this cycle ends or resets, she will be the one behind the veil, whispering to whoever comes next, helping this place birth its horrors all over again, trapped in that role forever. Miranda failed and Tabitha stepped into her chapter. Christopher failed and Jade stepped into his. The Kimono woman was most likely once a woman exactly like Fatima, from a cycle long dead who never made it out. Fatima is directly next in line for that chair. And here is where this theory completely detonates the back half of the season, because it creates the single most painful wedge this show has ever built between two characters: Boyd and Ellis. Boyd, the pragmatist, the man who has spent his entire time in this town trying to save as many people as possible, is going to look at Fatima and see something specific. He's going to see someone who can reach into Smiley's mind at the exact right moment to buy Jade time in the caves, or pull the monster's attention, or do something that gives everyone else a fighting chance. From his perspective, Fatima might be the thing that finally makes an escape plan actually work. But Ellis is going to look at the exact same woman and see the person he loves being measured for a sacrificial altar. We already heard it, plain as anything, in episode 8. He said he does not want to live without her. That line wasn't filler. That was the writers loading a gun they intend to fire. If Boyd's master plan only works by burning Fatima up at the end of it, that is the wedge that splits them permanently. Father and son, on opposite sides of the most impossible decision this show has ever forced anyone to make. And the real question burning underneath all of that is whether Fatima herself would consent to it, especially now that she seems to have quietly stopped imagining any future where she walks out of Fromville and lives a normal life. There's something in the way she says, "I feel okay," that doesn't sound like hope. It sounds like acceptance. Is this locked in? No. Nothing in this show is ever confirmed until it actually happens on screen, and the writers know we're theorizing, so they might have something completely different waiting. Maybe she does turn into a standard night creature. Maybe the Smiley connection is just an infection, slowly killing her in a straightforward way, and there's no cosmic role waiting on the other side of it. But you cannot dismiss this, because it is the only explanation that ties every bizarre thread together at once. Her impossible pregnancy, Smiley's rebirth, the Kimono woman appearing specifically to her, the visual echoes, the medical impossibility, and the endless cycles this town runs on. Everything points in the same direction. It's too clean to be coincidence. In a show this carefully constructed, clean patterns are confessions. So here's the question I want you sitting with. If Fatima becomes the next Kimono woman, then everything the town has done to her, the pregnancy, the suffering, the impossible vitals, all of it, was never cruelty, and the town decided she was qualified. What do you think is actually happening to her? Is she on her way to becoming a night creature? Or is something far darker waiting for her on the other side of this transformation? Drop it in the comments, because heading into this finale, nobody in that town is safe. And I genuinely think Fatima's fate might be the most haunting thing this season leaves us with.